Hi, today. Welcome to the first episode of the Building Rapport podcast. Podcast where you get a bit of insight into some of the users, customers, and partners of the Rapport platform. With me today, I've got Isaac Bratzel, founder and CEO of AvatarOS. Isaac, can you introduce yourself and AvatarOS to our audience and those that haven't heard of you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So as Fred mentioned, Isaac Bratzel, CEO, founder of AvatarOS. We're a digital human startup backed by A16Z, partnered with NVIDIA, now partnered with Rapport, which we're so excited about. We're basically building lifelike avatars that are interactive and can be implemented across platform. Our goal is really to reach the engagement level that you feel in real life when you engage with a human, and believe that level of quality and an enhanced interaction is really valuable and worth pursuing. My background is, I've been doing this for almost a decade, back in 2014 with a company called Ubisoft, creating the AI avatar Amelia.ai. After that, Chief Innovation Officer at Brud, where we created Little Michaela. It's been about a year and a half into this startup, and it's going really well, but really excited to get into it and talk about some digital human and technology implications.
That's awesome. Yeah, certainly I've gone back a little way with you, not the whole way, but during the Brud days, I think we've talked a lot about digital humans sort of over the years now. Can you talk a little bit more about your journey through those companies and actually what's brought you to the point where, you're building digital humans nearly 10 years ago now? Like what's brought you to the point where you've decided you need to, build your own technology company, AvatarOS, building digital humans?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, personal stories are odd because I feel like there's a different view retrospectively than there is in the moment and everything else. So that notwithstanding, I think I've always been drawn to, what's unique about me and what do I want to do, and I want to spend my time and passion doing something that is just enjoyable and like fills my curiosity. I'm someone who's easily bored and easily popping from thing to thing, and it's hard for me to find those things that really engage me fully. And usually that just means it's something that's really challenging and really hard, and that's something that at the end of it, there's a visual or tactile thing that I can kind of see and interact with. My background, I have a master's degree in computer graphics and 3D animation. I avoided all the big studio jobs just because I couldn't handle the bureaucracy or arbitrary nature of it. So I've always gravitated towards smaller companies or specific roles in a bigger company that is kind of treated like that. So I view this thing kind of as just a natural evolution when I look back at it. When I was at Ubisoft, I was the 3D department, right? So it was a bigger company, but it was just me, So I'd end up in I was younger at that point. I'd end up in a boardroom with CEOs of like giant companies and just naively just telling them exactly what we should be doing. And it was kind of an odd experience. It was almost like running my tiny little startup inside of a bigger company. And obviously Brud was my first experience at venture-backed startup. We were backed by Sequoia, had a very different business model and kind of lofty objective goals and different things like that. We went through an acquisition process and we're bought by Dapper Labs, which is a whole different. So I got to see a few different things, and I feel like all that time I was optimizing for learning. I was optimizing for putting myself in positions where this was a challenge, it was hard, and I was going to be in a situation where I was going to maybe be uncomfortable, maybe push myself past the experience I actually had and say that, that's just how you get that experience in the next place. So I tried to get myself to a position where when I started my company, I'd actually have a chance to succeed and have a network and build different things. But at the end of the day, when you do this, you just kind of take a leap, plan as best as you can, and then go forward, right? Just keep going forward, move as fast as you can. I like to say increase surface area, build with joy, and then just move as fast as you can and learn quickly.
Yeah, I love that attitude to continuous learning and building with joy. I think that's something I sometimes forget that we get to do in this industry, where we're playing with characters and doing creative things. And then I talk to my friends outside of the industry, and it just reminds me that, this is quite a joyful career and industry to be in. So
Absolutely.
I love that. Going back to kind of one of the other points you made about what AvatarOS is doing, it's clear that you think avatars are kind of the future and the interaction. I think that's something Rapport kind of really shares, is that fundamental belief that it's interactivity and characters kind of make conversation. Do you have any more sort of insights or thoughts about why you think it's necessary for that kind of customer experience or that piece of engagement, and how AvatarOS and Rapport fit into that?
Yeah, I mean, I have lots. I could talk about it for hours, but let's try to boil it down a little bit. I think at the high level, if you think about it in terms of like what's new today, what is changing in the future that is different from today, which is a common framework when you're trying to think of like what is disruptive technology, right? So obviously, programmable intelligence is one way to say it, or interactivity, the ability to actually have interactive responses and programmable quote unquote intelligence that is, able to interact, and that can cross from games to media to all kinds of experiences. And right now that's text interfaces. And I think that the obvious user experience for this stuff is what we've been evolved to work with for, just an immense amount of time, which is like face-to-face and human interaction. So I just think that if, with the growing impact of our digital world, the inability to have that kind of connection digitally is, first of all, a problem, and then therefore a huge opportunity, because while there are great solutions and there's a bunch of amazing technology in the digital human space, it's obviously extremely limited just because of how complicated it is to do. So my goal when I think about this is like, when you can reach a quality, and the quality really being measured by the kind of experience of the user in that interaction, that feels and starts to get that level of response. And when you can do that across platforms and in digital native ways that actually create real value, that you'll have a tremendous opportunity, because the way things are shifting and the way the paradigm shifts, that value will unlock a lot of possibilities that are currently kind of kept behind rails just because it's either too expensive, the quality isn't good enough, the user experience isn't great, or, at a certain point, if you go back to my Ubisoft days, when we were building this 3D avatar, this AI avatar that could speak with customers, they had a very real use case, right? It's autonomous IT systems to solve customer service, sales, IT solutions. But the fact of the matter is, 90% of the time, the interaction is better when it's just text. And that's because the visual element actually isn't good enough. It takes you out of the experience. So all we're trying to do is you try to remove all those blockers so that experience, that interaction actually feels natural and increases the value of the interaction, whether it's entertainment or utility based.
Totally. I think that's a great way to put it, where if you don't reach that quality bar and you fall below it, it actually is a negative experience. And that's something kind of on the animation side that we're always kind of striving towards, and why we think partnering with people like yourselves, where you can up the character game, we can deliver the animation game, and then we've partnered with other great providers of that intelligence and so on, kind of bringing all of this quality together. Actually, suddenly it starts to build an experience where it's a value add rather than a detractor. And don't get me wrong, you stand on the shoulders of giants that have allowed you to get there and
so true.
Made that leap.
That is so true. I think that's the thing that one of the biggest misconceptions, like when I post stuff for LinkedIn, et cetera, that I get is just like people thinking that we're trying to like usurp or undermine other things. Like, no, everything that we're doing is possible because other people came along and revolutionized things, including, I'm a huge fan of Epic and MetaHuman and Vlad and that team and what they did. You were part of the cubic motion team, and they were, that 3-lateral cubic motion combination for years was like the state of the art, pushing forward these things that make a lot of this possible. And there's a number of those things along the way, give James Jacobs and Ziva a shout out. They got acquired by Unity, and now they kind of got this thing is going a little bit differently than there, but still push forward a lot of these like ML based technology solutions. So there's just a ton of these. I could shout them out for days, and everything that we try to build is like positive sum. And what we really try to do is not reinvent the wheel. One of the things that kind of drives me a little bit crazy is, on the more artistic side of digital characters, is this desire to rebuild everything from scratch every single time. And while on an artistic side of that, that's fine if that's your goal, but I'm like a company technology side that is just bashing your head against the wall. Like, use the technology, the amazing things that have been built, and try to, how can we go take this now farther? How can we take this to the point where it actually, the end result is even more helpful to the user than it is before? Because one of the reasons why I think the digital human space is so interesting is, like, I heard a really great founder say this the other day, but it's like, what you look for in opportunities is industries that are broken yet somehow still working, right? And that, in his case, he was talking about crypto, right? He's like, why is he drawn to the crypto space, right? He's like, well, because it's broken, nothing works, everybody hates it, it's awful, and it's $2 trillion industry. like that's what I look for. It's like, this is broke. Imagine what happens if you fix it, right? And that's what he says. And to me, digital human technology is amazing technology, but at the end of the day, the use case for most users is it's way too expensive or it's way too low quality, right? Because humans are really hard. And when you look at this, and yet the projections say, like, what, 527 billion by 2030 is the latest projection that I saw. And it's like, so it's kind of like broken, and yet it's there. And what if you could actually fix that? What if you actually create these things? And that's the opportunity that, I like our challenge. So we're going to go take our shot.
No, totally. I think that's such a great point. I think about, pre-AR kit and pre-MetaHuman, like everyone was rebuilding rigs all the time and like these different rigging standards. And now current in rapport and speech graphics and sort of tech company, we've seen so many rigs over the years, and then we're slowly seeing this kind of like convergence of this learning from these rigging standards. And actually then it's allowing great artists to go and add that creative layer and do that additive thing. And you think, why has this not happened? Why didn't someone do this 10 years ago? It's not like rigs weren't a thing 10 years ago, but it just has taken getting to that point of someone saying, hey, I don't need to do this. I can build on top of it and improve it to keep going forwards.
That makes me feel really smart, because I actually went on the Epic Pulse podcast with Vlad and some other great writers, like kind of shortly after the MetaHuman release. And that I'm on record as saying, it's like, look, this visual quality right now seems great. That's going to continue to improve. But the thing that's really great about this is it's like a set of standards, right? It's like, here, now we have this baseline that people can use. Here's shaders that are set up to work in a real-time environment, and here's a strand-based hair system that actually set up to work. Now people can build more on it. And I think that standardization was the greatest thing that MetaHuman really, and that, like, huge props to Epic for doing that. And again, it makes sense. Like, their goal is to get people into Unreal Engine, and I think that has 100% worked. Right? They're putting out a framework that allows creators of all kinds, filmmakers, game makers, to go in there and have a set of standards that they can use and have a predictable outcome. So now that they can focus on how do we get that quality even higher, rather than how do we even build a framework to start to think about humans. And like, that's just such a huge undertaking that it's going to limit the amount of projects taken on to a pretty select few studios.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the exciting things, is having been part of that team at one point and coming externally and now, working with Rapport, where it's dropped the barriers to entry, of getting all of these tools set up together. You don't need to be a programmer to do it. And then suddenly you're like, hey, this is in medical field, this is in the sporting context, this is in a like learning and development. And you're like, there's no way this could have happened without, all of those additive technologies and all these people, these experts building these things and saying, hey, here's we want it to work. And then, we've gone to put that all together in Rapport for various different people. We've mentioned Epic and MetaHumans a few times. For those that don't know, it's an incredible framework for building digital humans, part of the Unreal Engine. Obviously, I think there's going to be comparisons drawn to what AvatarOS are doing. Like, do you want to, in your own words, kind of get out there, get ahead of like, what's the difference between AvatarOS and Epic's MetaHumans?
Absolutely. So our goal is to, well, first, when you think about character creators of all kinds, there's a amazing power to them. And we've been doing this for years. MetaHuman kind of took it to the nth degree in terms of, character creator. But at the end of the day, there's a huge value to it because of the scalability of rigging and character framework. The downside of it is that things start to look the same. All right. And like the negative word would be for generic. So none of this is an insult to MetaHuman. It's just the way the character creator works. If you take two shapes and blend them together, what you're creating is literally an average. And when you take an average of two unique shapes, you create a more generic shape. So, and when you kind of take everything and build it on the same rigging framework, you also have a tendency for things to move the same, right? That's how you get this scalability. So it's an amazing tool and framework. And that's why I love the framework part of it the most. We're actually able to build on top of that to bring uniqueness back. So our target is, one, to train on not just static scans, but 4-dimensional captures. And we can get into the weeds of that if people want. But the goal here being train machine learning solvers on human motion. And what we're training on then is the delta between the standardized character set and the real ground truth reality. So we can get a better version of unique motion and also bring back the uniqueness of each individual in the digital human process, while it's still able to leverage the kind of scalability of the ground framework. So machine learning is really what allows us to do that, to kind of build on top of, okay, here's a rigging framework, and we can use anyone. It could actually be compatible with MetaHuman or like a USD framework, FBX, and everything else. And then you can layer on a data set that machine learning learns from to bring the full uniqueness of what that character really should be. And that could be based on a human or based on a fictional character. And that's kind of our version of it. And again, the end goal is just, one, interactivity, two, a quality level that people can accept as actually feeling genuine and authentic. And everything we do is in service of that. So all that to say, it's very compatible with MetaHuman or anything else. It would be kind of like, how do we take this and in a kind of very specific sense, bring it even further to where we think it needs to go?
No, I think that's great and makes a lot of sense to me, of that really true to a specific person, true to a specific range of emotion, where, metahumans are trying to be all things to all people and everyone across the world. I think I am loving seeing the development of other great character creators out there. Really excited to see what Ready Player Me are doing as well, with their kind of more cartoony and digital style, and they have very different style to MetaHuman, but you can, in the same way you can spot a MetaHuman, you can spot a Ready Player Me character, and I'm excited to see what they're doing there as well. But I'm loving the sort of two ways these character creators seem to be going: the sort of platform play of Ready Player Me, MetaHuman, and then like the true to life, the scan, the clone of someone like AvatarOS or another company, Co-Presence, targeting different levels of quality, but going after like that, how do we digitally replicate someone? And I get to have great fun with that within Rapport, whereas then clone the voice using one of the TTS providers we work with, and then make sure the animation and the movement kind of can match up with, some of the abilities of the way the AvatarOS character rig can move. And that's one of the things we're going to be releasing together, is the AvatarOS Rapport. It's going to be yourself speaking digitally, and I'll be interested to let people kind of compare it to the podcast and see what they think about mannerisms, voice, movement, likeness.
Right, I should probably even speak more robotically now so that the comparison is more favorable, but I think I already do that. So when people talk to digital Isaac, they can expect that any amount of roboticism in the voice is actually pretty accurate, which is good.
I wouldn't say that's true, but I do think the voice clone you've made is pretty spot on now. I'm sort of been talking to you for 20 minutes or so. You've mentioned kind of, you've seen this market, it's like broken but working, because obviously, films using digital humans, games are using them. Like, where do you see the gaps to grow and like the opportunity from like your business perspective? Like, yes, amazing that you're creating these super high-end digital humans. I love looking at them, but like, what's the commerciality aspect of that? Is it Lil McCain and Brad kind of create a celebrity type play? Is it epic? Did Ready Player Me sell the characters? What's going on with AvatarOS? Where are you trying to head?
A great question, and obviously as a startup, the brutal answer is always that you're trying to figure it out, right? But we have pretty solid North Star goal of where we're trying to go, and a lot of that view is around the fact that when you're able to create truly lifelike avatars that feel authentic, when they're cross-platform and when they are interactive, that I believe that there will be use cases that are popping up that are very different from today. In other words, the goal long-term is actually to create kind of a new market around this stuff than just what exists today. Today would be like you're selling it to game studios, film studios, maybe a little bit of brand ambassadors. There's other things, and now obviously online avatars to enable things. So, and the goal is really to enable a lot more use cases and to allow those things. It's kind of like the planting seeds and letting 1,000 flowers bloom is kind of the goal. So we're hopeful to kind of be able to push this forward to the point where new types of things are able to come forward, and users are able to accept these in a different way. That may take a little while. So a lot of the time what you're doing with the startup is balancing long-term convictions with short-term survival and the short term kind of like strategy, etc. And one of the ways we do that is doing a lot of design partnerships across verticals, because one of the things that's unique about us compared to others is the idea of being like, we don't want to be a walled garden. Like, to the degree that we have aspirations of being a platform, it would be more of a market-based platform, right? Where you're allowing and incentivizing the behavioral of people integrating in because you've built a great system. And that is fundamentally different than the platform version of lock-in, which is also, makes a lot of business sense, but drives a certain level of behavior. So with us kind of going vertical and being specifically digital humans, I think what the best play for us and the version of the feature that would be great for us is a platform level marketplace style thing, but that integrates across these platforms, because I think that really unlocks a lot. So I think when you mentioned Ready Player Me, that's a great example on obviously the more stylized, like simplified avatar front. But I love Ready Player Me's model. I've been a fan. Timu is great, and I think that there's a lot of crossover in the way they think about things to the way we do, even though we're on a different side of it and kind of doing something different. And that is that on the user side, you can go and take a selfie of yourself, create your own avatar, and then take that avatar across the different experiences. And on the developer side, you can go and say like, you don't need to worry about creating a whole avatar system. Just implement this, and if it works, ideally you actually get some network effects of like a user maybe is more likely to use this experience because they can they have their avatar already built out. And if that works, it starts to kind of go exponential, because now you have more and more people wanting to like integrate, etc. So like the specifics of it will vary based on how things go, but that is kind of closely tied to some of the thinking that I have around this. But a lot of the kind of snowballing results at the end come from the early strategic decisions you make and success you have like at the beginning, to make sure that the first step is just like, can you provide value to a user base, even if it's small, even if it's specific. And actually oftentimes, especially a small and specific group that has a very real need. And that's what we try to do, is like find that specific group that we can overserve, that we can provide value for, that we can refine a product and then expand from there. And that's always going to be our goal. So early days, that'll be determined by a variety of factors that we're all happy to share soon, I guess.
That's awesome to hear. I think, obviously I'm getting a little peek behind the curtains. We're sort of integrating your characters in the moment. And I hope people will be excited to kind of get a little bit closer than the LinkedIn videos and the website I've seen, where they can actually start to interact with you. But I kind of think it's super interesting hearing where you are in your story and thinking about speech graphics and now the Rapport platform we've got to, where, as a company, we started at the University of Edinburgh doing speech muscle simulation. We found a really great use case for this in video games, and we're trying to apply it to lots of industries, but found that video games, localization, particularly getting, hey, I need this to work in all these different languages, but don't just want mouth flapping for those just listening to this, but actually want to see lips and nose flare and these types of things. So we've got to that point where we've really found that niche, we've done really well in that industry, and now moving back to the platform of like, hey, this technology works, we've proven it out, we've got users now, how do we make it simple enough that it can go across these different verticals and different industries, which is exactly what Rapport is kind of enabling, rather than you need to know about Unreal Engine or Unity and character creation and all these types of things. You can click on AvatarOS characters, click on 11 Labs voices, click on ChatGPT, and you're ready to build a really engaging character with your story, your voice, etc. So
and I think that's
to hear where you're on that.
No, that's why the partnership made so much sense. I think ideologically there's so much crossover. Obviously, speech graphics being an industry standard, and obviously one of those pioneers that really, I think, saw something early on that maybe was, not the consensus vision, but saw the value in it and pioneered it a little bit. Obviously, I think that there's also an argument that they're doing a little bit of cross-platform, very early adopters of MetaHuman, I think, and integrating their technology with MetaHuman and others as well. So for us, this idea of going cross-platform, of integrating across different things and having a similar vision just makes a ton of sense. So that's why we're so excited to like partner with Rapport and make it really easy to access and scale and interact with lifelike avatars. And I keep saying lifelike avatars, that's aspirational. We know they're not quite lifelike yet. I'm not gonna be one of those that like just pushes a narrative that's like, oh, this is photoreal when it's not there yet. But also always caveat it. But I think pushing and getting closer and closer to interactions that feel natural and feel real, and remove these elements that will exist for a while that just make it feel stunted and feel, like there's just this gap between you and a digital character. And I think this partnership with Rapport is a great way to start to test that out and get it out in the open, right? And let people interact.
I've seen so many comments on your LinkedIn posts and things like, how do I get this? What do I do? Like, how do I, what is this? How do I do it? Is photo real? I would disagree with you that I think it's photo real for now. And that's how I've thought about a lot of these technologies and on animation, on any of these looks development. I remember watching Lord of the Rings. That was photo real. You go back and watch Lord of the Rings now and you can spot the digital characters from a mile off. And I think you are absolutely at that point where it's photo real today, and you look at it in 10 years time and think, what the hell was I making in it and building? But hopefully this will give a bit of posterity that we both thought it was pretty great at the time.
I think actually that's a really important point. I think that one of the things that AvatarOS is going to bring that is needed is that these things are kind of living, and the technology is living as well. In other words, it isn't a static thing. One of the things that's been the case in the past is that if you're going to go invest in a really lifelike Hollywood quality character, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the likelihood and almost certainty is that that's one project, because in a year and a half to 2 years, that character, that technology is obsolete. It's outdated. It's not that great. And you can see that on every, VFX movie, et cetera. It changes so fast, technology about. So one of the ideas of the AvatarOS platform is, can you have these things and have them constantly updated like software, right? Where I always the thing that always blew my mind is if you saw Toy Story 4, it felt like the same characters, the same everything as Toy Story 1, right? It just you just accept, there's Woody, there's Buzz, all the things. If you go back and watch Toy Story 1 and compare it, the movie totally holds up, by the way. But you can see, holy crap, the graphics, it's such a difference. But it felt this, because if you did the same graphics as Toy Story 1 today, people would be like, what is this? This is awful. It looks terrible, right? So there's this expectation you have to keep up, but you want to maintain the same character. And I think that's part of the thing that we think is necessary, is it needs to automatically be updated, that same character, in order to look the same and feel the same to us with our changing perception of how these things work. It has to actually constantly be improving. It can't be static. And I think that's kind of one of the things that we're trying to build into our platform, is that character isn't it's built and now it sits there and it's going to be fine in 5 years. That's not the case. It's going to be the same character, same parameters, but with technology that's constantly growing and improving. And that's one of the advantages of machine learning and some of these other, technologies that exist today.
Yeah, totally. I think I've not heard you say that ambition out loud, and that's really exciting to hear, because that's also what we've got going on with Rapport, where, for our video games customers, from the speech graphics side of the business, it's, we've got to provide stability. They build a pipeline, they build the game on that pipeline, they release the game. But actually what's been really exciting about Rapport is we can start rolling some of these early software updates straight into that product and get it out there live, some of the stuff that's coming next. We've always animated characters or helped people animate characters so they've got breath, but now we're starting to add breath and laughter detection in. So the characters actually, we're not just animating the face and the throat, but actually starting to add additive animation to the whole body. So it's natural. And if the character's breathing heavily, you can start to see that. And that's not just happening up here, but it's a thing that happens across your whole body. As anyone that's gone running or pushed themselves hard knows. And so that's where it's we can get that out. We can get that out in front of people and show them, when previously we would launch it. If you were at SIGGRAPH, you were at GDC, you would know speech graphics has done that, but customers and end users and lovers of games and media wouldn't see these kind of great inventions for 2, 3, 5, 10 years, right, even in, some development cycles. So I do think this always on service is actually also really exciting for the end user of all of these things, because they get to see it actually when it happens, rather than X number of years after that technology, whether that's groom, whether that's character, whatever it is, they see it when it happens rather than delayed. You've obviously kind of said that's the long-term ambition, that's the long-term plan. What's the short term? What's next for AvatarOS in the next 3-6 months? Can anyone think of anything you've got launching, coming out? What's happening in terms of that?
we have a bunch of exciting partnerships to announce. So for people wanting to get their hands on these, there are probably more announcements coming. We have this kind of classic problem with a startup that is also trying to kind of build a premium service, where the typical thing to do with the startup, especially a technology startup, is to release an MVP and iterating it better. But we have this issue of an MVP, the minimum viable product for fully lifelike digital characters, is a pretty high standard to try to hit, right? So the way we'll do that is a little bit different than what some others might be, but what we do hope to have is examples that design partners and early adopters can actually start to play with and use, right? And that would be like a full body integration. And the cool thing about that is that they're kind of built to receive inputs from various inputs. So for example, speech graphics customers or report customers could actually have full body avatars that can be interactively animated through that system, right? And actually be drag and drop into that. So in the initial deployments of those will probably be kind of like specific persona characters that are really high quality that people can demo and kind of use or license in some cases. And then from there, we'll have to we'll build up the pipeline a little bit more. So there's a lot of exciting partnerships that we have to announce coming up. Obviously, we're currently, maybe not obviously, we're currently in a speedrun accelerator with A16Z Games. So there's a lot of exciting things happening there. And yeah, there's probably too many things to talk about all at once, but I think coming out soon, the thing to look forward to would be like a first cohort of characters that people can actually get their hands on and interact with and test, which would be fun to release.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really exciting. And I know we've got one character we're going to have within Rapport. Hopefully we can get them all within Rapport.
Yeah.
And, that can be one of the quick places to start playing around and put your own spin on these characters and start building the map. So look, Isaac, I think it's been great chatting with you. Hopefully that people have enjoyed our conversation and heard AvatarOS kind of and your perspective on the future of digital humans and where they are and where you're going. I've certainly kind of learned a thing or two. So thank you very much for your time. And yeah, I look forward to releasing this and releasing our kind of partnership and your character together so people can play around with.
It's great. It's always great chatting with you, Brad. Really appreciate it. Talk to you again soon.
Speak soon. Bye.